Why do you keep promising yourself that tomorrow will be different, only to wake up and repeat the exact same failures today? Look in the mirror. Are you where you said you would be 5 years ago? Or are you standing in the exact same spot, holding a brand new, highly detailed list of reasons why it is not your fault? We wrap ourselves in the warm, comforting blanket of excuses because the cold truth of personal responsibility is terrifying. But here is the brutal reality: the world does not care about your excuses. Your bank account does not care. Your unfulfilled goals certainly do not care. If you are finally tired of your own lies, if you are ready to shatter the illusion and actually take control of your destiny, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and join a community of people who choose accountability over comfort. Let's break this cycle together. In behavioral psychology, the trap you are currently stuck in is known as having an external locus of control, which ultimately builds what I call the invisible cage. It is a psychological prison constructed entirely by your own mind, reinforced by a phenomenon known as cognitive dissonance. Your brain despises internal conflict. When your daily actions, or your lack of action, do not align with your internal self-image of a capable, ambitious person, it creates severe psychological friction. To resolve this mental pain, your brain has two choices: either do the incredibly hard, exhausting work to change your behavior, or invent a convincing excuse to justify your current state. 99% of the time, the human brain takes the path of least resistance. It chooses the excuse. You convince yourself that the economy is too bad, that the timing wasn't right, that you didn't have the resources, or that someone else was to blame for your lack of progress. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a victim of your own brilliant, defensive mind working overtime to protect your ego. Let me share a story with you about a man named Arthur. Arthur was inherently brilliant, a man bursting with innovative ideas that could have completely changed his industry. But Arthur was also a master architect of alibis. If a project he pitched failed, it was his manager's lack of vision. If he didn't get a promotion, it was unfair office politics. If his physical health deteriorated, it was his unlucky genetics. Arthur lived his entire existence in the passive voice. Things simply happened to him. He was never the one making things happen. One quiet evening, sitting alone in his dark, cluttered apartment, Arthur received a letter from an old college mentor, a man who had recognized his incredible early potential. The letter contained no greetings, no small talk, only one single, piercing sentence: "The day you stop defending your limitations is the day you start exceeding them." Arthur scoffed. He immediately drafted a mental list of all the very real, very legitimate reasons why his mentor was out of touch. He was dealing with a tough industry. He had a stressful, draining commute. He didn't have the same financial starting line as his peers. He crumbled the letter and threw it away. But that night, Arthur fell into a deep, restless sleep and had a vivid dream. He found himself walking through a massive, sprawling graveyard covered in a thick, suffocating fog. But as he looked closer, he realized these weren't tombstones of people. They were monuments to unfulfilled potential. He walked past gravestones that read, "Here lies the business I never started because I was waiting for the perfect time." He stepped over another, "Here lies the book I never wrote because I was too tired after my shift." And another, "Here lies the incredible life I could have lived if I had just taken responsibility." As he walked deeper into the graveyard, the fog grew thicker, and the monuments grew taller. He reached the dead center, and there stood a massive, towering mausoleum. It was built with heavy, dark stone blocks, and on every single block, a word was deeply carved: but, because, unfair, tomorrow, someday, impossible. Arthur realized with a sickening, paralyzing twist in his stomach that he was the architect of this mausoleum. Every stone was an excuse he had spoken out loud. He had built an impenetrable fortress to protect his fragile ego, but in doing so, he had walled himself in completely. He was trapped inside his own invisible cage. He was safe from the sting of failure. Yes, But he was also completely isolated from success, joy, and true fulfillment. He woke up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding against his ribs. The morning sun was just starting to violently pierce through the blinds of his messy apartment. For the first time in his adult life, Arthur didn't blame the alarm clock. He didn't curse the morning light. And he didn't complain about the uncomfortable mattress. He sat on the edge of the bed, finally feeling the crushing, undeniable weight of his own existence. Arthur didn't just wake up from a dream. He woke up from a decade-long coma of complacency. He looked at the crumpled letter in the trash can, walked over, and smoothed it out. The day you stop defending your limitations is the day you start exceeding them. He pinned it to his mirror. This was the moment of terrifying liberation. When you finally strip away the comforting lies, you are left naked with the truth. You are exactly where you have chosen to be. And that is the most frightening, yet incredibly powerful, realization a human being can have. To understand how to permanently break out of this, we have to look at another massive psychological barrier keeping you trapped, the fixed mindset. This is the deeply ingrained, toxic belief that your intelligence, your talents, and your circumstances are carved in stone. When you operate with a fixed mindset, every challenge is a threat to your ego. If you try and fail, a fixed mindset tells you that you are fundamentally flawed. So, what does your brain do to protect you from that devastating thought? It manufactures an excuse. It tells you the game was rigged. But when you forcefully shift to a growth mindset, failure is no longer an indictment of your character, it is simply data. It is feedback. Suddenly, you don't need excuses anymore because you are no longer terrified of looking foolish. You are only terrified of staying exactly the same. You realize that the obstacle is not in your way, the obstacle is the way. Arthur began the grueling, exhausting work of dismantling his mausoleum brick by brick. He started at his job. When his next major project fell behind schedule, the old Arthur would have blamed the client, the tight deadline, or his incompetent co-workers. The new Arthur walked straight into his manager's office, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "I mismanaged the timeline. The delay is entirely on me. Here is my concrete plan to fix it." The manager was stunned. For the first time, Arthur wasn't a complaining victim. He was a leader taking extreme ownership. The sky didn't fall. He wasn't fired. Instead, he gained immediate, undeniable respect. He realized in that moment that taking responsibility doesn't make you weak. It makes you incredibly dangerous. It makes you a force of nature. This radical accountability bled into every single area of his life. He stopped blaming his genetics and started waking up at 5 a.m. to train his body. He stopped blaming the terrible economy and started learning high-income skills late into the night while his peers were watching television. It wasn't easy. There were days he desperately wanted to crawl back into the invisible cage, where it was warm, safe, and absolutely nothing was his fault. But he remembered the graveyard. He remembered the heavy, dark stones of tomorrow and impossible. He actively chose the temporary pain of discipline over the permanent, suffocating agony of regret. Arthur is not a special case. Arthur is you. He is me. He is every single person who has ever traded their immense, boundless potential for a cheap, comfortable alibi. The real magic in life happens the exact second you point the finger at yourself. Extreme ownership is the ultimate life hack. Because if your terrible situation is entirely your fault, then guess what? The power to change it is also entirely in your hands. You are no longer a helpless passenger in the vehicle of your life. You have just grabbed the steering wheel. So, here is my challenge to you today. Right now, in this very moment, identify the biggest, heaviest excuse you have been carrying around. The one you use to justify why you haven't started that business. Why you aren't in shape, why your relationships are failing, or why you are settling for mediocrity. Look at it closely, see it for what it truly is, a cowardly lie you tell yourself to feel better about giving up. Drop it, smash it, leave it in the dust. I want you to go down to the comments section right now and type these exact words: I am responsible for my life. Declare it to the world. Claim your power back. Stop waiting for a savior. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. And stop making excuses. No one is coming to save you. Your future is waiting on the other side of your accountability. Go build it.